Heat apocalypse arrived. The Earth felt like it had tilted a little too close to the sun. Temperatures soared past 50 degrees Celsius. Trees turned to ash where they stood. Flowers crumbled to dust. Rivers cracked open like broken glass. And oceans vanished into mirages. Not a single cloud dared to show itself. The sun wasn't just hot. It was a white-hot eye in the sky, a cruel god casting its judgment. I had worked my whole life to secure a home in the city: solar panels, reinforced walls, water filtration, and an emergency bunker. It was my safe haven, my fortress, until they came. My mother, Sarah, her new husband, Mark, and their precious son, Sam, my stepbrother. They arrived sweating and whining, dragging in their entitled lives. I let them in. Blood, right? Family, I told myself. They needed shelter. I didn't know then that I had just let the wolves through my door. My mother took to the house like it was hers, walking through it with that smug look, like everything I owned was simply on loan from her womb. One day, as she was cutting up some dried vegetables, she casually said, "You know, since I gave birth to you, this house should really belong to Sam. He's the future." I laughed. I shouldn't have. No. She didn't argue, but her eyes turned dark. I thought it would end there. The food I stockpiled, meant to last at least a week, disappeared in 2 days. They gorged like beasts. Mark and Sam sat all day in front of the air conditioner, sweating and farting and demanding more. I rationed myself. They feasted. Then came the 3rd day. There was no food, not even crumbs. That night I was dozing when something cold and sharp clinked against my wrist. Rope. It happened fast. Mark grabbed me while Sam held my legs. My mother just watched from the doorway, dead in the eyes. "Help!" I screamed. "You're my mother!" She looked at me like I was a stranger asking for spare change. They took my right leg first. I remember the sound of the machete. It wasn't a clean cut. It took time. Every strike ripped through my scream. Blood flooded the floor. The pain was blinding, white and hot, louder than the sun outside. Then came the smell. Cooked flesh. My flesh. They feasted. I heard my mother whisper to Mark, "We can just say Ella died from the heat. The house will go to us." I was still conscious. Fury swallowed my fear. Betrayal burned deeper than the pain. My own mother, my own blood. I died staring at her face. I died full of hate. My final thought wasn't sorrow. It was vengeance. Then I woke, gasping. My room, my bed. The air was cool. The curtain fluttered gently in the breeze. The sun was kind again, peeking softly through the window. I looked down. My legs, both of them, intact. I scrambled for my phone. July 4th, a month before I died. It was real, all of it. The machete, the fire, the betrayal, the lie. I had been sent back, not for mercy, not for comfort, for justice. This time I wouldn't trust a single soul. This time I would prepare. Let them come. I will not die again. I bowed to survive. The first thing I did was lock every door and every window. I pulled the blackout curtains tight. I paced the house like a ghost stalking her own grave. The air felt too cool, too kind. It made me uneasy. This world, this timeline, hadn't yet rotted. But I knew it would. I stared at my phone. July 4th. The heat apocalypse was less than a month away. The news hadn't picked up on it yet, but I remembered the warnings. Solar flares, a climate anomaly no one could explain. We dismissed it then, laughed about it. Another doomsday prediction, we said, but I knew the date. I knew the death toll. I knew mine. I opened the hidden hatch to the basement, the one even my mother didn't know about. My emergency supply room. Cool, dry, lined with shelves of food, weapons, a backup generator, medical kits. I had been careful last time, but now I had an edge. I opened a notebook and began to write. Plan, survive, expose, eliminate. Over the next week I made changes. I added locks inside my bedroom, reinforced the pantry with steel bolts, set up cameras, hidden, silent, battery-powered, Every hallway, every entry point, I even rewired the kitchen's electrical panel to be triggered remotely, and I trained. Every morning before sunrise, I worked through the pain, lifting, running, strengthening the body they had once butchered. I would not be weak again. I also bought 2 new machetes. One I oiled and placed in the kitchen, the other I kept under my bed. On July 10th, my mother called. "Hey, sweetie," she said, her voice syrupy. "The heat's been really bad here. We were wondering if we could stay with you again?" There it was, the first move in their game. I paused. My fingers dug into the phone case. "Of course," I said sweetly. "Come any time. Let them think I was the same idiot who handed them a key to the kingdom. Let them think I was still her daughter." They arrived on July 13th. Mark's sweat-drenched shirt clung to his belly like a second skin. Sam looked older than I remembered, but his eyes were just as empty. And my mother, she smiled the same way she did before she watched me bleed to death. "I missed you," she said as she hugged me. I hugged her back, but in my head, I whispered, "You will miss me when I'm gone, and you'll miss your soul even more." I showed them to their rooms, told them to make themselves at home, and then I watched, waited, listened. The countdown had begun. The heat came creeping, just as I remembered. By July 17th, the city was baking in 42-degree heat. People began collapsing in the streets. Power grids flickered. Panic was blooming like mold in a sealed room. But inside my house, the air conditioner still hummed. The generator I bought, quiet, solar-charged, concealed in the back garden, kept the illusion alive. We were safe, for now. Mark and Sam did what they always did. Ate, sweated, demanded. Mark barked at me to bring him cold water. Sam refused to eat leftovers, even when I warned them how precious our food supply was. My mother hovered, smiling too much, her tone overly sweet, like she was playing a character. She offered to help with the grocery list, with the food storage, with the documents. "You never know," she said, "if something happens to you." I nodded. "True. I've been thinking about updating my will." She smiled, but her eyes sharpened. I smiled back. That night I left a single notebook out on the kitchen table. "Supplies and ownership," it read. Inside, nothing important, just scribbled fake records and a page that read, "Must transfer deed before weekends. Backup. Sam inherits if something happens." It was bait. The next morning, the notebook was gone. July 21st, 45 degrees Celsius. The city announced a stage-red emergency. Roads melted. People vanished into their apartments and sealed their windows with towels and duct tape. The sun was no longer just hot. It was hungry. It sizzled against the skin like acid. Birds died mid-air and dropped from the sky like stones. Inside my home, I cooked dinner. Vegetable stew. Just enough for 3 bowls. I placed them carefully on the table and called everyone in. But I didn't serve myself. "You're not eating?" my mother asked. "Not hungry," I said, smiling. "I had some earlier." She watched me closely. Good. Let her wonder. Let her doubt my generosity. July 23rd. The temperature hit 50. The sky turned a permanent white-yellow. Clouds no longer formed. Outside smelled like burnt metal. People began dying in clusters. Mark turned violent first. "Where the hell is all the food going?" he roared, slamming the pantry door. I just blinked at him. "You tell me." He lunged, but I stepped back and pulled a knife from the counter. Calm, silent. "I suggest you don't." He paused. That flicker of confusion in his eyes. He didn't expect resistance. He didn't know I wasn't the same woman they carved like meat. Later I caught my mother staring at me from the hallway. She didn't blink, didn't flinch when I caught her gaze. "You've changed," she said flatly. "Have I?" I said. "You're colder." I smiled. "Must be the air conditioning." July 25th. The solar flares were coming. The blackout would hit in 2 days. The power grid would go dark, the world would shut down, and I would be ready. They think I'm cornered. But I've already dug the graves. All that's left now is who gets to scream first. The power died on July 27th. The last breath of the air conditioner stuttered out around 4:13 a.m. I was already awake, sitting cross-legged in the cool silence of my hidden basement, eyes fixed on the small monitor in front of me. Camera feeds flickered in black and white. The living room, the kitchen, the hallway, the pantry. 4 angles of a house about to descend into hell. Upstairs, the heat was already starting to squeeze the air, 52 degrees and rising. By 6 a.m., Mark was pacing the living room, dripping sweat, growling like a rabid dog. Sam lay shirtless on the floor, his skin blistering in patches where he had passed out too close to the window. My mother stood near the fan, which wasn't turning anymore, fanning herself with a piece of cardboard and watching them both with that same vacant calm. They didn't know I was gone. Not yet. I had slipped into the basement while they slept, carrying the last of my water, my food, and my notebooks. Then I locked the hatch and sealed it from the inside. No one could hear me down here. Not over the screaming sun. By mid-afternoon, the hunger had set in. I saw Mark raiding the pantry, swearing and throwing cans. When he found the lock, one I'd installed secretly, he roared and slammed his fists into the metal door like a caged animal. No food? That bitch took everything. I smiled, because I had, and I left just enough behind for suspicion to fester, a half-empty rice bag, an empty can tucked under the couch. By nightfall, Sam snapped. He lunged at Mark in the kitchen. The camera caught it in brutal detail, his filthy nails clawing at his father's shirt, screaming, "You're hiding food! I know you are!" Mark struck back, elbow to the face. Sam crashed into the table, sobbing and bleeding from the nose. My mother tried to pull them apart, but she was too slow, too tired, too hungry. They turned on her next, accusing, screaming. Mark shook her by the shoulders. "You know where she keeps it. Where is it? That brat hid food somewhere." "I don't!" she shouted, but her voice cracked. They saw it, and the beating began. I watched it all from the basement. Sound off, just black and white brutality unfolding on tiny screens, their voices muted, their violence framed like a silent film in a burning theater. I sat calmly, sipping from a silver thermos. July 28th. Sam was the first to kill. I saw him creep up behind Mark in the early morning, holding the knife from the kitchen block. His body trembled, skin blistered, lips cracked open like torn paper. He didn't hesitate. The knife sank into Mark's neck like it was butter. The blood sprayed the wall, a dark, thick mist. Mark flailed for a few seconds, grabbing at nothing, then collapsed across the dining table. My mother didn't scream. She just stared. That night, Sam dragged Mark's body to the bathroom and tried to carve something from it. My camera glitched. When the image returned, there was a pot on the stove. The camera didn't catch the boiling, but I could imagine it. I could smell it in memory. July 29th. My mother tried to poison Sam. I saw her stirring something into his cup, her hands shaking. He drank it. Then he vomited. Then he attacked. The last footage I have of my mother is her face pressed against the kitchen floor, her eyes wide and empty, a trail of blood leaking from her mouth. Sam crouched over her, knife in hand, chewing something that still moved. By July 30th, the house was quiet. Sam sat in the corner of the living room, rocking back and forth, humming to himself. The sun burned through the windows like a white eye. The walls bubbled, flies gathered on the ceilings, and I sat below, alive, untouched, watching. The days dragged on like a funeral march. Each hour upstairs was hotter than the last. The sun refused to set properly. It just hovered in the sky like a flaming god, punishing everything that lived beneath it. I didn't go up. I didn't speak. I simply waited. In the basement, the temperature stayed steady, thanks to insulation, earth, and planning. I rationed my water, ate in silence, and stared at the screens as the house above rotted. Every so often I'd hear footsteps, clumsy, desperate. Sam dragging his feet across the hallway. He was the last one left, and he was unraveling. By August 1st, the food upstairs was gone. He'd eaten parts of both parents, cooked Mark, raw bite from mother. But even madness has limits. He vomited everything back up within a day. He tried breaking into the pantry again. Failed. He screamed for me. "Ella! I know you're down there!" I didn't answer. He pounded on the basement hatch, beat it until his fists bled. I turned the volume off. I watched. August 2nd. Camera 2, front porch view, flickered online. Sam stepped outside. Sunlight hit him like fire. He screamed instantly, clutching his face, stumbling down the cracked driveway. His shirt was soaked with blood and sweat, sticking to his spine like glue. He went next door, the old neighbor's house. He tried to break in. Didn't know they had already booby-trapped it. Didn't know the father inside had snapped days ago. Didn't know a gun was waiting behind the curtain. One shot, clean, right between the eyes. Sam dropped on the doorstep like trash. Camera 2 held on his body, still twitching, for over an hour. Then, nothing. August 10th. The heat broke. Rain fell for the first time in 19 days. Not a storm, not salvation. Just a quiet, steady drizzle. Like the sky was exhausted and crying from the strain of holding itself together. I opened the hatch. Air hit my face, warm and thick, but breathable. The house above stank of rot and silence. Blood stained the floor like veins in the wood. The table was overturned. A single blackened hand still clutched the stove. I didn't look long. Didn't cry. Didn't speak. I walked to the front door, barefoot, and opened it wide. The neighborhood was ashes. When love is a myth, and survival is a quiet kind of vengeance. And in the end, I didn't need to lift a blade. The heat did it for me. The end.